Why control weeds? They obviously impact yield for nutrients, for water, for moisture. That's one of the main reasons. They provide food and shelter for insects, mites and snails. Sorry, forgot about snails. That wasn't on the list. It will be now. They act as hosts for diseases and viruses as well. Weeds often have aphids in them. This is one I've been asked to really talk about is the prickles, the spine, the weeds that are, they cause a lot of issues if you've got grapes, and I don't like eating 3 corner jacks, I think many people do. They hinder the harvest operation as well. You've got a lot of weeds that you can hinder the actual harvest. Lowers the value of the property, and it looks horrible, doesn't it, having these messy weeds. That's also bad. So, and there's probably some others there as well. The weeds are a pain in the backside, especially if you sit on a 3 corner jack. So there's lots of ways to control weeds. It's not spray a herbicide. That's the first go-to for a lot of growers. They see a weed and they think, right, what herbicide will control that? There are actually other ways to do that as well. And I've just been having a bit of fun. There's biological control, there's little sheep too, they like to eat all weeds. Weeds taste nice. Steaming, I don't have a lot of experience with steaming, but that's one practice that's used in Europe. Does anyone use steaming here? It's a pretty rare thing. There are some organic herbicides, so sort of some acid type herbicides. Here you've got a vineyard with this farm very happy. All these weeds, I reckon a lot of those are going to reshoot. In order to control things with an organic herbicide which doesn't move in the plant, it actually just burns what's there, you've got to go young. And I'll mention this a lot of times, small seedlings are very, very sensitive. As they grow a little bit bigger, if it's a grass, a few tillers, extra shoots, the roots get bigger, you burn off the tops, there's a lot of energy below, it'll regrow. So a lot of these herbicides, or even synthetic herbicides that are just burning the top, you've got to go very young, otherwise there's lots of energy at that below the soil level that you get reshooting, and where you think the job is great, come back 3 weeks later, there's a lot of reshooting. So, but that's, it's called slash, it's a non-ionic acid type. There is another one called, I don't know what the commercial name, but it's pine oil. It's we've used it in some areas and it works really well. But the wine industry, I don't know what they've done, but I'm thinking, will your wine taste like Clean? I don't know. It's one of these things that people got to work out, but it's very effective as well. There's of course the mowing, so keeping weeds down, and also this guy's also spraying, so he's mowing and spraying at the same time. Mechanical, like pulling out and disturbing weeds. When you disturb the soil, you open up the soil for aeration, light, gas exchange, and so other weed seeds that are ready to germinate even easier. So disturbing the soil can actually have that effect. Cover crops, so this is a farm that's got what's called soursop. It's a declared a noxious weed, but this grower here is using soursop that grows in winter and then dies in spring. And in summer, you don't actually get a lot of weed seeds germinating because these things have kept everything under control. So the growers spray once a year to control weeds, and that's all. So this is like a natural competition. When soursop spreads, doesn't allow anything to come through. Mechanical mowing, and this is they're sort of finger cultivating to try and get the weeds in that line row, and cover crops as well. Have you guys heard of a Caffini aqua knife? I came across this, look it up on YouTube, because this is pretty, look at the YouTube videos, this thing is using cold water under pressure, like a gurney, and on the YouTube anyway, it looks amazing. They're controlling quite big weeds as well. So by the name, it's Italian technology. coming into Australia, not available yet. But this thing is really impressive. Like, I watched about 5 YouTube videos before I got bored, and then I went on to other things on YouTube. But it's bloody amazing. It's really amazing. So have a look at that. So it's using cold water under pressure, killing weeds. So that's something that for organic growers, and not only for organic growers, but controlling and completely safe to young vines. So look that one up later on YouTube. So just to outline which species are becoming harder to control in vineyards. 1, Feathertop Rhodes grass. Is that becoming an issue? Because 15 years ago, I don't think it existed in South Australia. Like, we never had it here in the 80s. It's probably come through contamination, the floods we had 20 years ago, moving further down. It's a really tough weed to control once it's established. When it's young, it's very easy to control, but when it gets to that size, it's quite tolerant to glyphosate. So you can kill it with glyphosate, but it has a natural tolerance. But as I'll show you later, we've got populations where growers have been using a lot of glyphosate, and their populations have become highly resistant to glyphosate, so glyphosate doesn't touch it. And when we look at why, it's got a similar mechanism to what the GMO crops, the glyphosate-resistant GMO crops have. Nature has selected for that in Feathertop Rhodes grass. So what the guys have done in molecular labs, nature's done in Feathertop Rhodes grass as well. So Mother Nature is a very powerful tool. If you have any problems controlling weeds that normally used to work controlled, if you've used the same kind of herbicide, you may be starting to find out some resistance. And so we can have a quick look to work out, how to tell that apart. We'll talk about the modes of action because there's quite a few ways that herbicides kill weeds. It's not only glyphosate and paraquat, there's a lot of other herbicides that can be used in vineyards. Post-emergent, so you've got post-emergent herbicides. They're herbicides that you spray on foliage, absorbed by leaves, and it kills the plants. You've got your residual, your pre-emergent herbicides. So your herbicides, how many growers here use a herbicide sprayed onto the soil to prevent weed seeds germinating? It's not very common here, there's a few. Not very common. It's hard also because when you can't see weeds, you think, there's nothing there. That seed bank, that soil has just got thousands of weed seeds per square metre. How do you get the best out of herbicides as well? So it's not about bunging it in the tank and spraying it. There's ways that you can make those herbicides work a lot better than what they could do now. A bit on herbicide resistance, just a little bit on that, and a bit on testing. So that's basically what I'm going to cover. If there's anything else you'd like me to present on weeds and herbicides, absolutely, this is why I'm here today. They're the things that I sort of saw. So there's a lot of different, these are all Roundup, Weedmaster. Can anyone guess how many glyphosate products are available in Australia? In 1970, there was one. It was called Roundup. Can anyone guess today, just a rough guess, how many glyphosates you can buy? Oh, much more than 100. There's 600 glyphosate products in Australia. 600. Mostly coming from China. Actually, they all come from China basically, but there's quality products and there's also some really dodgy ones. 600. Paraquats, there's 100 paraquat products in Australia today. So, where do you make a choice? But we've got different ways. These are residual herbicides, called pendimethalin. You've got your carfentrazone. These are your spike herbicides. I saw one of the vineyards here on the way had a lot of mallow in it, about that high. Putting glyphosate with a little bit of something like carfentrazone. It's the commercial name the FMC have just released is Spotlight Plus. It actually helps the glyphosate, burns the weed a lot better, and it's also used for desuckering vines as well. So you can actually use a herbicide to desucker the vines and other trees as well. But we'll go into this a lot more. So this is from the AWRI list. I'm not going to go through all these, but these are all the herbicides that are available that are used in vineyards. I can't see very well. But this guy here, that's Slasher, that's an organic herbicide, the one I showed earlier. And the other one here is pine oil called bioweed. So they're the two organic herbicides that can be used to control weeds. But again, Slasher is mainly for young seedlings, get a really good burn down. Bioweed here also can have some activity on preventing weed seeds from germinating as well as they're germinating, so it can work on them as well. All the others are all, so you've got herbicides that are active only on broadleaf weeds, herbicides that are only active on grass weeds, and then you've got your glyphosates and your paraquat, which are active on all grasses and also on broadleaf weeds. There's a whole heap here. So there's a lot there. So you guys may be using 3, 4, 5 different types. You can see they're all different types. This is glyphosate. Glyphosate, they've only got about 50 products there. As I said, there's 600. So you just show the glyphosate, you need 3 pages to show the glyphosate products. So, this is me in Greece on my uncle's property 3 weeks ago. He's got a 0.1 of a hectare. They call it a strema. Strema is there's 10 strema in a hectare. He goes, I've got 1. So he makes his wine for the year, and he's cultivated the soil. And I said, how do you? It's going to rain. It's actually been raining a lot. These soils are volcanic soils, the deep valley soils. Next to here is a huge mountain called Taigetos. It's a snow-capped mountain. When I was there, a lot of weed seeds in here. So here I am. This is pendimethalin. Not a very big sprayer. I got RSI spraying. I think he had Pinoclean or something in it before. So I sprayed a little patch. From here to the wall actually. And I said, here, Uncle, just rake it a bit, or if it rains, that's fine. And just monitor what weeds will germinate here versus in the rest of the vineyard, and let me know. So you should let me know in the next couple of days, because that was 3 weeks ago. So it's a pre-emergent herbicide, but it is also the main, what they use there is they use a lot of tillage, cultivation to try and control weeds. And in between here, they'll have a few weeds. They may go, it's only a small property, they probably go and hand weed it. Yeah, but it's, you've got both types of systems there.
Peter, sorry, apart from an error phone call, that list that you put up earlier, that's in the spray diary. That's the same, they're pretty much the same listing as the AWR stuff.
It's a very comprehensive list, and we'll go through those herbicides today. This is another vineyard that my friend has again in Greece, in Corinth. And there's 2 properties here. This is my friend's property. He encourages cover crops to grow. And I counted, I could identify 20 weed species. I got on my knees, had a look, 20 weed species. There was more, some I didn't know. And this guy here has got mainly fleabane and prickly lettuce. What characteristics are different here? This guy has been spraying the hell out of that with glyphosate, leaving bare soil. These fleabane, prickly lettuce, some of the other weeds, surface germinators. You've got moist soil open, bang, a sow thistle, a milk thistle, love to grow there. This little vineyard here is dominated by those species. In here, all that white is chamomile, plus a whole heap of other species, which were, he just has to slash that, and it's fine. So just the difference in how both growers treat their grapes, their vineyards, has determined how many species there are. These species are non-troublesome. These species here, problematic. The fleabane, roots go down this deep, so unless you spray it with a really high rate of glyphosate, you burn some off, it'll move down a little bit, but it reshoots. So you've got to understand the species that are there. I think I covered all those. So he's got diverse strategies. he'll have very little germination there over summer because it's quite dry, so the main weed species are there. But because I was there, I said, hey, let's spray some herbicides, let's have a bit of fun in your vineyard. So I managed to get a bit of Feathertop, Spotlight Plus, and Glyphosate, and I said to him, let's spray your vineyard out. They were just starting to bud, so most of them hadn't started to burst yet. So he sprayed Glyphosate plus a little bit of this Feathertop, the Group G herbicide, and he's had a pretty good control there, excellent control. It was really hard for me to tell him, don't spray a little strip so we can compare it. He goes, but there's going to be weeds there. I said, hey, reference, you can spray in 2 weeks' time. So this is 2 weeks, I sprayed 2 weeks earlier, and he had a very good job there. So he's got a lot of dead plants there. He'll be pretty right now for the coming summer as it dries up. So if I look at the diversity there, this is papava, or the poppies, the red poppies you see all over France as well. So just the difference in that. Now you've got to be careful because sometimes you say, okay, we can add carbendazole to glyphosate, and if you've got mallow, it'll do a fantastic job on mallow. But if you've got caltrop and you mix carbendazole or another Group G herbicide with glyphosate, it actually antagonises, it gives you a negative effect. It's better to use just glyphosate and not add the other product. So some weeds you can get a better control, and other weeds you're better off using glyphosate. So if you're not sure, my trick, use glyphosate if you're going to use herbicide, and as I show, increasing the rates with using a better quality product can achieve a lot better control. But it's if you've got weeds different weeds, better to just use glyphosate rather than adding other stuff to it, because they can give negative effects. So post-emergent herbicides, stingly spray. These are Targa, Verdict, Fusilade. Who uses grass killer herbicides in their vineyards? Does anyone use any of these? So these are very effective against all your grasses, so your winter grasses, your barley grass, your ryegrass, brome, all those also very good on fleabane, windmill grass, all those. So if you're heavily relying on glyphosate to control these grasses, including one of these is a very good idea, because if resistance is starting to happen, you can actually break the cycle before you get into trouble. So these are grass herbicides. There's hundreds of these, but there's 3 main products: Targa, Verdict, and Fusilade. They all inhibit enzymes specific to grasses. They're registered in vineyards as well as horticulture. I've mentioned briefly the Group G herbicides. So these control broadleaf weeds. They're rapid, light activated, burning products. You've got things like gol or oxyfluorphen, Spotlight Plus, carbendazole, also for desuckering, and a lot of other herbicides. They kill a completely different enzyme. They're rapid burning, registered in horticulture. Different mode of action to glyphosate. Very good to incorporate, so you can prevent. It's all about preventing resistance to any one herbicide, and the most commonly used herbicide is glyphosate. So avoiding resistance because it's happening all over the place. Gramoxone is spray seed, all these herbicides. These are photosynthesis herbicides, so they light activated. So if I wanted to use this herbicide, if I want to get the most out of these herbicides, I would spray them right now. Low light, so it gets absorbed into the plant, moves around a little bit into the plant. In the morning when the sun comes up, bang, it activates, kills. If I spray it on a hot, sunny, bright day, it'll burn everything there, but it won't, things can reshoot if they've got a bit of size to them. So using these guys, I'd spray them on a cloudy day, late in the afternoon is the best. Your glyphosate, I'd spray that in the morning, because you want the plant to be actively growing, absorbed a lot better than spraying it late in the evening. The biology of the plant changes, it respires a lot, it doesn't actually produce sugars in the evening, and so it doesn't take up as much glyphosate in the morning. It's active, bang, it takes it all up. There's some growers, I was talking to some growers around broadacre farmers, and they said in the morning we'll use, say, 1 litre per hectare of glyphosate, and when we come back at lunchtime to refill, we'll put in 1.3 litres, because it's getting later and we want to get the same absorption as we had earlier in the morning. So they increase the rate according to the time of day.
The group L's,
Yes.
can weeds become resistant to those?
Yes, they can. Actually, the first resistance we had in Australia back in the 80s was paraquat resistance in barley grass and capeweed. Before we had any ryegrass resistance, which is, you know, the king of resistance, it was barley grass and capeweed. So yes, they can. And I'll show you some photos on paraquat resistant, yes. Basta. Does anyone use Basta as well? This is another mode of action. It works under warm conditions, and you need some moisture, some humidity in the air. If it's dry, it doesn't work as well, but it's another herbicide which is used in horticulture. It works quite well, but you need, in a hot, dry summer, it doesn't work as well. It needs to have a little bit of humidity around for that to work. But it's a non-selective herbicide, so to control grasses and broadleaf weeds also. Registered in grapes and vines. And Amitron, group Q, a completely different way of killing weeds. Again, another active, another mode of action to kill. So, you know, you've got glyphosate, but we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 completely different systems to kill weeds. So relying on one can be quite challenging. Where you get resistance, a lot of the broadacre farms had resistance along fence lines because they spray the fence lines with glyphosate, and they had the odd surviving plant, but there's no crop competition there, so you had a very weak survivor that if they were in a wheat crop, they'd probably get smothered out and killed. But because they're on the fence line, they recover because everything around them is dead. There's light, there's nutrients, there's moisture, and suddenly these things in a few weeks will produce thousands and thousands of seeds. In a vineyard, if you have the odd survivor, same thing. There's not a lot of crop competition in the vineyard, so they can actually really multiply quickly. So very similar situation, those fence lines. Then the resistance moved from the fence lines into the paddock. And now these growers are starting to have issues trying to control weeds in their actual crops. Residual herbicides. So these are farmers in broadacre farming. I'll go back one. So farmers in broadacre farming, resistance to these. They've lost their grass killers. They don't work anymore. Resistance. These are not really used in broadacre. That's bromoxone, yep, that's used, but you can only use it non-selective. You can't spray it in a wheat crop, you kill your wheat. Glyphosate as well. So this was their main way of controlling ryegrass. They can't use it anymore. So what are they using now? They've had to change the modes of action. They're using residual herbicides. Residual herbicides is different classes, have very complex ways of killing weeds. And they don't only kill weeds with one mechanism, they have different ways. So developing resistance to those is a lot trickier for weeds. So using them lowers the risk of getting resistance to any one particular herbicide. No one wants resistance to glyphosate. You want to be able to use glyphosate and it works. The way you make that work is to use other herbicides so your weeds don't become resistant to any one particular herbicide. So they complement post-emergent herbicides. Because these guys, where you may have 1,000 seedlings per square metre, if you use a residual herbicide, you may have 5, 10. The chances of one of those being resistant is really low, but if you've got 1,000, the chances of there being a resistant individual is a lot higher. So the residual herbicides kill a lot of those and just lower the risk. They kill a lot of weed species, but they require incorporation. Mechanical or irrigation. Sprinklers are good. If you've got sprinkler irrigation, you can incorporate herbicides or rainfall. It's going to rain on Wednesday. I'd be putting out pendimethalin. I will talk about pendimethalin. I would be putting out pendimethalin right now, tomorrow, or any other residual, because that is going to incorporate beautifully, and you won't have any issues for the next 2 months. You won't have any weeds germinating. So tomorrow, go and buy some residual herbicides, mate. It's going to be a beautiful incorporation day on Wednesday. You should have between 10 and 30 mils, I think. So it's a lot of, it's the time to do it, because you don't always have the opportunity. So what are the residual herbicides? You've got your group C. They are all light activated photosynthesis. So when the plant starts to photosynthesize, then dies. So they're photosynthetic ones. Your group D, these are as old as Neanderthal men. These are still very, very active. Stomp or pendimethalin controls a lot of weeds. One of the, we had a PhD student who was researching windmill grass and Feathertop Rhodes grass. That was his PhD project. And he found that if he applied pendimethalin, Stomp, or it's got a lot of other names, this time of year, he got very, very little Feathertop Rhodes grass germinating in spring. So 6 months later, there was enough herbicide there to stop Feathertop Rhodes grass from germinating in his vineyard, because he used this in May. Stop pendimethalin. So it's a fewer weeds, less chance of resistance to any particular herbicide. So they inhibit weeds by stopping the actual division of cells. The cells start to divide, and then it stops there, and so the seeds die. So they're very old herbicides, but still very, very effective, and registered, of course, in all horticultural crops. Very safe. Control a lot of species. If you look at the label, it's got about 40 species of weeds they control as well.
They still have to be incorporated.
Yep, they need incorporation by rainfall, sprinklers, or a light mechanical incorporation as well.
So what happens if you don't incorporate it, if it doesn't rain?
Yeah, well, that's why I'm saying you've got to spray them tomorrow, because it's going to rain on Wednesday. If it doesn't, what happens when light hits it and then there's a bit of soil moisture, it actually volatilizes and is lost. The way these herbicides work is they light plus moisture, they become gas, and the gas is what fumigates and kills the weed seeds. So it's not the liquid, it's actually the gas that's produced. So if it stays dry, it's okay. Like the sandy soils, it'll be fine. But if you have any moisture, then you lose a lot of activity.
Yeah, I think they recommend
Stop.
It shouldn't be used after flood burst. Because of the problem.
Yeah. If it's very sensitive, yeah, at that very sensitive stage, yeah. These are quite new to me in terms of in horticulture. So diflufenicin and bromoxynil, they're broadleaf, they're bleaching herbicides. So you spray them and the weeds go white. Only active on broadleaf weeds, but very, very, very effective. Again, a completely different mode of action. Norflurazone, Zolia, has anyone used that? That's a really, really old herbicide. That was in the 70s and 80s. It's a residual herbicide. Again, it controls a lot of weed species as well. Again, oxyflorphan, or these PPOs, or Group Gs, Spotlight Plus, used at high rates. They're very good for controlling broadleaf weeds. So your prickly lettuce, your milk thistle, all those type of weeds. And another Group O. Cereal farms don't have any Group O's registered in their crops, but this is actually quite a new discovery, gallery. Again, another mode of action. So there's a huge diversity there that are registered out there that can complement and avoid resistance developing to any one herbicide. Now I know it's easy to just buy glyphosate and spray, it's easy, especially in winter where things are dormant. But using some of these can help everything work forever. That's the key thing, if you're using herbicides.
With the light and dial, I often put it in the spike and glyphosate.
Yep. And that's when the Group Gs first came out, because when a herbicide comes out, it's under patent protection. Company wants to get as much profit as possible because they've just spent $300 million to bring it on. So it was you were using it at 15 mils per hectare rate, adding it to the glyphosate, and it did a wonderful job. Now, as these guys are coming off patent, you can use them alone, because they're cheap now. You can use them alone to burn down. You don't have to add them with glyphosate to burn down as well. And there's about 10 different some of these, and they all do different jobs, slightly different jobs. But on the whole, things like oxyflorphene, gold, they're in that double page that I showed earlier. That's in your handout there too. So it's quite diverse range of herbicides available. So okay, that's herbicides. Let's look at some ways of making herbicides work better than maybe they have. So younger weeds are more sensitive. They're more sensitive. So a lot of growers and broadacre farmers are keen for this. They've waited for all the weeds to germinate. Let's get them in one shot. So you've got little seedlings, and then you've got massive weeds all together. You've got shading. But we want to spray once. And you get escapes that way. Either it's shading, or if weeds are big, they're more tolerant to herbicides. Why are they more tolerant? The leaf cuticles are thinner on young leaves. So, when you've got a little baby holding your grandson or something, skin's nice and soft and, beautiful, pat its bottom, nice and soft. As we get older, we get wrinkly, our skin gets thicker, same with plants as well. So, when you've got thick cuticles, it's really hard for herbicides to get through them. When you're spraying them younger, they get in much more rapidly. Herbicides have to move. Some herbicides like glyphosate have to move through the plant to all the growing points to actually work. Okay? So if you've got a little weed, then with the roots, it's this big, so you've got shoots and roots. Glyphosate only has to move a little bit to the growing points, to the root points. But if your plant is that high, glyphosate has to move right to the lowest parts of those root tips and the top to actually kill the whole plant, otherwise you have recovery. So younger plants, there's less translocation, less is required, and they work a lot better. So with contact herbicides, you try and spray with paraquat, a big plant, you're not going to kill the roots. So often you get recovery. You get burn down, and then recovery. If there's leaves underneath that the paraquat can't hit because of physical hindering, then they recover. So you may need certifications. If weeds are stressed, nutrient stress, water stress, frost, high temperatures for some herbicides, plants stomates aren't open, the plant stresses, doesn't take up herbicides as easily. One classic is a grass herbicide called clethodim. I don't know if it's registered in vineyards, but when it's frosty, it just doesn't work. Growers say, I've got resistance to clethodim in ryegrass. They send it to me, I spray it, they die. They go, but it didn't work in the field. It's the frost that's caused that to fail. If it's hot, the plants are dynamic. So if it's hot, the cuticles become thicker over a very short period of time to prevent water loss. And as it gets cooler, like next week, the cuticles become thinner again. Why is that? You need a lot of energy to actually maintain thick cuticles. If you don't need them, why should the plant exert energy to create thicker cuticles? We don't need them. So thinner cuticles, cooler temperatures, herbicides work better. Hot conditions, tougher. So this is just a shot of, this is milk thistle. We'll spray milk thistle at you know, like rosette stage plants with glyphosate or Basta, could have been glyphosate, would have been the same effect. Complete burn down. Once they get bigger, we've burnt the leaves, but all these shoots full of buds, they're all going to reshoot. So waiting 3 weeks was different between complete control or what looked like control, and then a few weeks later they all reshot from the sides. So what about glyphosate? Glyphosate's really particular. It's not a simple fact of chuck it in a tank and spray it and it works. So I remember my dad, when was it? It would have been, I reckon, 1984? No, before then, I was younger. This is in the 70s, actually, when I was in primary school. And he bought glyphosate, first came out, and he sprayed his channel banks with glyphosate in winter, and it worked really well. And then in summer, he sprayed, again, he had cooch, or I don't know what he had, there was only a youngster there. And he goes, oh, this is crap, this stuff, they've watered it down, he said, they've watered it down. This is 1970 Monsanto. They've watered it down, it doesn't work better. It's not me, it's the chemical that's at fault. This is 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and I'm thinking back then, no, it wasn't the chemical, Dad, it was something else, it was you. But, it's the information, the transfer of information. So I've done a lot of work with glyphosate over the past couple of years, a lot of work. Glyphosate works better under cold conditions and hot conditions. That's a given. Even in pots. We can't kill susceptible weeds growing in summer in pots at a particular rate. In winter, dead as a doornail. So the colder it is, even below 10, but in the teens, glyphosate works fantastic at the low 20s, okay? As it gets to those mid-20s and 30s, you need more glyphosate to do the same amount of job. Whereas glyphosate, Basta, likes warmer temperatures than cold temperatures, so then you got the opposite.
Is that on day you apply?
What, sorry?
The temperature, the day you apply? It's not that short, no, it's actually probably the week. Sort of if you're spraying a few days before or after. So because those cuticle thicknesses, Jeremy, are changing as well, so you probably need 3 or 4 days before or after to. So if it's hot tomorrow but it's cool today, I've sprayed in summer. We had 50 windmill grass populations. We tried to spray them in one day. Some of them were too young. We said we don't want to spray the young ones; they're going to die. So we sprayed the older ones. So we sprayed the older ones. It was really hot conditions. The next week, it cooled down into those low 20s. We sprayed the second lot because they had reached the same growth stage as the first ones. Had them on the bench side by side. My colleague said, the ones we sprayed on the hot conditions last week, they're all alive. The ones we sprayed the week after, they're virtually all dead. They can't all be resistant, they can't be susceptible, it's not possible. I said, what was the temperature? And she told me it was the temperature, just a week apart. So, a day probably doesn't do it, but 2 or 3 days of hot or cold conditions, and that can really make a huge difference in the activity. Droplet size. What you need is a largish, concentrated glyphosate droplet. So what are the typical rates, the water volumes that you would be using glyphosate here, guys? 100 litres, 200 litres, 300 litres, 500 litres? What's an average? How much? 200 would be
200?
In order to
200 plus or around? Yeah, okay. So some of the there's a herb, like Roundup Ultramax, if you read the label, it says the fully loaded glyphosates, so the glyphosate, they're 540 strength or 570 strength, 5 minutes. 540, those herbicides have a certain amount of surfactant in them, and that's to a water volume of about 90 litres maximum. If you're using 200 litres,
you have to add more surfactant, otherwise you're diluting the surfactant and the herbicides don't work as well. So you need to read your labels, add more surfactant, otherwise, or add more glyphosate in the tank.
Was that in the environment, no sort of
What?
environment?
Low volume? Yep. Yes, it does, yeah. Excellent activity. You get very concentrated droplets.
Very fine droplets.
Works very well, yeah, and concentrated. The fine's okay. The herbicide is concentrated, and if you've got a concentrated herbicide above the leaf and nothing below, you get rapid transfer. So you get very good control with those systems. Yeah, I've spoken with vineyard growers on those previously. So yeah, water volumes. We've talked about water volumes. Yeah, spray early in the morning. And water quality, guys. I guess your water would be pretty good. Is it mains water that you're using mostly?
Straight from the river, probably.
From the river? If it's cloudy, glyphosate absorbs onto clay particles, drops out, inactivated instantly. Glyphosate's negative charge, your calcium, magnesium positive charge, combined, bang. So if you've got those situations, use a water softener. Ammonium sulfate, use a water softener. That'll precipitate out all the ions, then add the glyphosate. So add your water softener, get rid of all those positive ions, then add your glyphosate, and it should work beautifully. You can't do much about water, you can only use whatever water you have. So this is also, I've got 7 glyphosate products sprayed with exactly the same concentration of glyphosate. Got all these different effects. We've got some products, so this is only about a week and a half after spraying. Some products where we got complete control, and some glyphosates we didn't get control. Same amount of glyphosate, different products. How do you know? Stick to your quality products. You know, your Roundups, your New Farm products, your Adama products, all those made by the bigger companies. They guarantee quality. The cheap stuff, cheap for a reason. They use very cheap additives, and so the herbicide just doesn't get into the plants very effectively. So took this photo last week. This is Feathertop Rhodes grass. You can see it's quite a sensitive stage, very nice sensitive stage. This is with susceptible. This is with a 540 glyphosate. So it's fully loaded, it's got all the surfactant in it. And here we added 0.2% BS1000, so a surfactant. Oh, look at the difference. They're going to survive. They're dead. And it's a susceptible one, not a resistant one. So here we just increase the activity of the glyphosate. So it can be that dramatic. Yeah, so here's your water quality. Water quality, what they've actually done here, basically they had lots of different water hardnesses, and they had a very soft water. They got 100% control, 1,000 parts per million of hardness, and they lost 86% of the glyphosate. So basically lost almost all of the glyphosate. They added ammonium sulfate at 10%, and they got all the activity back. Because they were precipitating, they were losing all the glyphosate. So by adding a water softener, got all the activity back. Very cheap product. So
How long would it take to work once you add it to the
yeah. I reckon just a few minutes, like 20 minutes. This is the effect of controlling wild oats. Wild oats in winter, we got 100% control at rates well below, this is the registered rate, well below the registered rate. In winter, normal timing. Do the same trial in summer, we couldn't kill wild oats with, that's about 3.5 litres of glyphosate in pots. That's just purely on temperature, the moisture was the same. So cool conditions, glyphosate works a lot better. Winter growing annual, these are the registered herbicides. Glyphosate, cetazine, so group C, residual herbicide, Jaguar, again broadleaf weed herbicide, glyphosate, residual herbicide, mifurozone. So it's not only glyphosate, we've got other options. Hitting them younger works a lot better. Once they get big, once they get to this stage, really tricky. If you can get them before they germinate, even better. Caltrop, summer grower. Love summer, germinates in spring growing, spring germinating. Again, glyphosate, pendimethalin, stomp on bare ground. Pendimethalin will kill these guys from germinating. Trifluralin in young vineyards, because of pendimethalin you can get the evaporation, and so cause some damage. So on young vineyards, trifluralin, same chemistry, but you have to mechanically incorporate a very light cultivation and put it into the system. All your gallery products, plus a knockdown, or again surfland, another group D, this is group D, the same killing method, amitrol and dipod and paraquat. Again, the younger you can get in there, the better the control, guys. Once they get to this stage, they're bulletproof. Khaki weed, do you have this one? Yep. Okay. Not as much choice there. Again, spring germinating and light soils, that's what you guys have. Glyphosate, glyphosate, amitrol, these are ones I found, there's probably others. Some of the residual herbicides will also have an effect on it as well to stop the germination. But these guys are all doing it.
Everywhere the council repair the road this year, they've got it along the edge of the new bitumen. On the edge of the road.
Yeah. Love the councils. Love the councils. Innocent weed, or gentle anti, I don't know what you call it here. Again, glyphosate, Basta. I don't think you guys use a lot of glyphosate. Residual, no propamide is, again, you've got a residual herbicide. You've got a residual herbicide here, and they get another residual herbicide to control this beast. So there are some options other than glyphosate. So, yeah.
I guess, Peter, the question that, I threw you in terms of those ones you just went through.
Yep.
What's the risk of this region creating herbicide-resistant versions of those weeds?
We haven't seen any resistance. So some species, you just don't see resistance in it. So you can't just say, right, I've got species A, I'm using this product, I'm using it all the time, I'm going to be resistant to it. Doesn't always happen. For some reason in biology, some species, there's no resistance to this particular herbicide. So we know in ryegrass with the grass herbicides, it happens very quickly. With glyphosate, took 20 years to get resistance in ryegrass, but now we've got it because every grower's been using glyphosate. Paraquat resistant ryegrass, I only see it in the southeast of South Australia. Why is that? Because they grow lucerne and white clover seed crops. They use paraquat 3 times a year and nothing else. Really intense selection. But broadacre farmers, no paraquat resistant ryegrass because they use it once every 2 or 3 years. So these things I think quite genetically diverse, yeah.
All right.
If you've got any issues about testing things for resistance, if you're not sure, contact Stuart and we can get some
we can organise that.
species through.